Hi, welcome back, and thank you again for joining me on my learning block. Well, today I'm glad you're here because we are learning this thing called fractions. All right, your child is at a point where it is pivotal that they really attain a lot of this information because it will help them out down the road when it comes time to geometry, algebra, and calculus, and all these different high level maths. Fractions really kind of are the point where your child really needs to kind of grasp. Don't know how often I can say it, how well I can say it, but there's good news. It's not that hard, all right? If you think about back in the day when you were learning about fractions, I'm sure a lot of things come to your mind. 1/2, something that everybody can remember are the pizzas, right? You had the pizza and then you break it up, or you had the Hershey's bar and you'd say, all right, these are broken up into fourths or eighths, however Hershey's are broken up into. Well, fractions are that. There's just a different way of teaching them now. And so brings us to our next topic at hand. All right, so breaking fractions. All right, fractions are the representation of equal parts of a whole. Notice I said the word equal. Equal parts of a whole. All right. Some people will just say fractions are part of a whole, right? It's part of a whole. Well, let's look at that. So let's say I had a terribly drawn rectangle like this, and I did this. Now, right here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 different parts of a whole. Are those fractions? Are those broken up into fifths? Of course not. We know this. It's not. Fractions have to be equal. So taking the same thing, and I know I am terrible at drawing. Let's say hypothetically this was, equal. Then it will be broken up into fourths, right? So that is what we're talking about with regards to fractions. That's what you want your child to understand. And this is an introductory class of fractions. Not a class. Who cares about class? All right. So introducing fractions. I know something that you remember a long time ago are these two words that are always so used. Numerator, dun, 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 and denominator, dun, 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 dun. Forget about it. All right. And the words of, what's his name? Forget about it. And the words of him. All right. We're not working on these yet. Your child is being introduced into fractions. Introduced into fractions, not to fractions. All right, we're not at a point where we want to focus on numerator and denominator just yet. What we want to focus on are the fractions themselves. We want to focus on understanding that they are equal parts of a whole. So instead of this whole mess about numerator and denominator, what we want to determine, or the way you help your child, is to say, all right, we have a rectangle. They say, yeah, we have a rectangle. You say, well, cut that rectangle in halves. Okay. Well, if your child doesn't understand halves, that's fine. Cut the rectangle so that there are 2 pieces and they have to be equal. What does it mean to be equal? Well, let's say that there are 2 kids and they both want a piece of this rectangle. You have to share, all right, between the 2 of them. And you don't want one person to have a larger side and one person to have a smaller side, right? And they'll say, right. So make it equal. And they'll say, oh, okay. And so they'll take it, and if mine's not straight, I apologize. So I apologize up front, so it's cool. So bow. I've cut it in half. Yay! We're starting fractions, ladies and gentlemen. So now the fraction is in half. All right, now it is time to go a little further. And you say, okay, so you think you know a little something, don't you? Now let's make it harder. And they'll say, yes, what do you want me to do now? And you say, well, I have another rectangle. How about cut it into thirds? And this is a great situation if you have scissors, if you have a sheet of paper, to allow your child to do right then and there. Allow them to actually cut stuff up. This is a chance to use scissors. We all love scissors, except not running with them. All right, so we tell them, again, nothing about a numerator or denominator. Who cares about that stuff? We tell them to cut this rectangle into 3 equal pieces or thirds. If your child is ready for the vocabulary, use it. Definitely use it. I am all for it. Halves, thirds, quarters, whatever the fifths whatever the fifths are, use it. You don't have to say it into 3 equal pieces. You cut it in thirds, or say 3 equal pieces and then say thirds right after, and they'll kind of get what you're saying. So we're cutting this one in thirds, I think. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong. 1, 2, 3. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? All right, so we're cutting it in thirds. Now we're really cooking with vegetable oil. All right, and so it's time to go a little further. So we have our cut. We cut it in halves and we cut it in thirds, and now it is time to cut this thing into fourths. Cut it into 4 equal pieces. And your child at this point, they're a professional. They're like, oh yeah, I'll cut this thing in 4. 1. Woo! I know it was coming. That's pretty bad. I know. I apologize. There and there. And I know it's bad. Look at the pen. Look at it. I have to write on this little board and it goes into the screen. And this is my fourths. Thank you. Your child's will be better. All right, so cutting it into fourths. All right, so now they have cut it into 4 equal points. This is all. This is how we introduce fractions. You can keep going. Cut it into equal points of cut it into equal halves, fourths, thirds. Cut it into equal eighths. However you want your child to cut it. Give them an opportunity to now divide objects into different numbers, different halves or quarters or different things like that. And that is introducing your child into fractions. Now, again, you want to introduce fractions as parts of a whole. And right here I have parts, but I know you're probably correcting me as equal parts of a whole. And that will really give your child an understanding, a base foundation of fractions. And again, you can switch your objects. We can use circles, see, and cut it into fourths. We can use triangles. And I'm gonna try this, cut it into thirds, however you want to. And I know that's terrible, but again, you're giving your child an understanding of partitioning these objects, cutting them in half. See, take a whole object and partition into smaller parts. Smaller, again, equal parts, which is the key word in this whole ordeal. All right, this is introducing fractions. Give your child an opportunity to use this stuff. If you can, go by the resources, print out some resources, download them, print them out, give your child an opportunity to use it. Again, I'm always for manipulatives. If you have the Hershey's or different things like that, they really do help. The pizzas, let's stay away from them right now, but we'll get there. All right. Thank you again for joining me on my learning block. I look forward to learning with you next time. Keep learning with me.